And I certainly agree that the fundamental questions need to be answered. Unfortunately, the process that seems to be available to us to answer those questions is the feasibility study. And it's clear that the Corps has their own criteria, their own process. I don't see that we have the option to alter that. We have the option to participate or not. And I share the concerns of everyone about whether it's really affordable for us to fund the feasibility study and then looking forward to fund our local share of the construction of the project. So, you know, the most promising thing that is out there on the horizon is, I believe, the proposed Eel Russian River settlement that is intended to address all outstanding issues between the two basins. And if approved by the local interests on both sides of the hill, or a significant, a critical percentage of them, then it could be converted into federal legislation, which could make the project a federal project that would then be 100% funded by the federal government. Exactly how to deal with the feasibility study in the meantime and how to fund it is a question, and I think it's appropriate, as the IWPC has requested, that there be an audit of the funds spent so far and how those are being spent. As to the proposed amended agreement, one thing I noticed, Section 4, that is labeled withdrawal, also talks about reinstatement, so it should probably be withdrawal and reinstatement. The price to be reinstated appears to be the same price that they would have paid if they hadn't dropped out. But in the meantime, assuming that there were 4 who continued on, they're all paying 1/4 of the cost. And then when the new member rejoins, they pay the 1/5 cost that they would originally have paid based on the wording. And there seems to be no consideration for the additional amount that the 4 who have stayed in all along are paying.
Yeah, there's a reimbursement clause.
Yeah,
There is a reimbursement clause.
Okay, if that's covered, was that in the original language then? Because I only looked at the highlighted. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that. Thanks.
Any comment on the idea that we should appeal to FERC and with the support of the Covelo Indians? Do you see that as being tinkering with the proposed settlement that you are saying might help us out in the long run?
Well, my suggestion would be, rather than move forward with that, talk to the stakeholders involved, which would certainly include the tribes. Perhaps have a meeting or a conference call of the interested stakeholders to just test the waters and see what reception that idea might get. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Test the water.
City Attorney.
Just 2 things. First of all, just to respond to that immediately, the law firm of Rapport and Marston used to be the law firm of Rapport, Marston, and Quessenberry, and Steve Quessenberry is the attorney for the Covelo Indian community. And I've known him since I was in law school, so.
We have some connections.
So I can just pick up the phone and I can find out exactly for you what the position of the community is and whether they would be interested in doing that. That's number 1. Number 2 is, as I understand it, you already have a contract to share in the costs of the feasibility study. All this is an amendment to that existing contract, and it's an amendment that covers what somebody's going to pay if they're an entity that's withdrawn from the agreement and now wants to get back in, or whether or not they're a new entity that's never been involved in the contract and wants to get back in. And it's to the interests of the city to have that amendment in place, in my opinion, because it's going to govern how people, what they're going to have to pay, and it requires them to pay if they either withdraw and then want back in, or they're new and they want back in. So, you know, your city attorney, David Rapport, drafted it. He drafted it with your input. I know what Ross was saying. He was saying, don't spend any more money until you know what's going on. But approval of this amendment isn't going to require you to spend any more money than you've already obligated yourself to spend. And in fact, it might actually save you some money if some other entity at some point in time wants to get back into this process. So I guess what I'm recommending is I don't see any I think it would be in the best interest of the city to go ahead and take action on the amendment and approve the amendment.
And there can be added fees for someone coming in at the last moment after, if the project turns out to be feasible. It says the commission may impose additional charges or other requirements as a condition of reinstatement or participation. Further discussion on this cost-sharing agreement that is involved in paying for the feasibility study, the local share of the feasibility study.
I got a question. This is a question.
Yes.
And this is just a question. I understand what he said, and if it's not going to cost you any money, you're in an agreement, okay. But if it's going to cost us more money and you're getting ready to pay, then I have a problem. But my question to you is simply, who owns the water for raising the dam? And if there's already been a decision made or something in writing, I'd love to see it. And two, who owns the dam when they do raise it? Because technically speaking, the majority of the dam and everything is Sonoma, but it's underneath the operation of the Army Corps. And three, Russian River Flood Control, I believe, filed on the water, the rest of the water, they believe, actually they overfiled, if you really want to know the truth of it, of the amount of water that was going to be able to run into the dam, and that was before they made the adjustment on the PG&E water coming out of the dam. So, to me, those are three questions that from the conception of this deal, which were asked way back, and I did ask this, and we said this back in 2002 when I was at the Inland Power and Water meetings and the others, and I can go pull the records up on it, that I'd just really like to know. And if we could find out what those are, maybe I'd feel a little better. But right now, I don't have a tingling feeling, I have a numb feeling.
This is coming off the top of my head, but my recollection is the dam is owned by the United States of America. I mean, the United States of America, through authorizing congressional legislation, put the cost of building the dam among various agencies that wanted to participate. And in exchange for putting up that money, those agencies that put up that money were to acquire a right to the use of the water that was stored behind the dam in direct relation to the amount of water that they receive is directly proportioned to the amount of money that they originally put up on the construction.
I could go with that, but the use of the water and the right to use the water and the operation of the water behind it is controlled by Sonoma County. The operation, I mean, the amount they let out and how it's distributed out. The maintenance and the operation of the dam and the operation of the dam facility is by the Army Corps, and the,
Right.
and
It's
the
operated by
government
the
could
Army.
own the
Okay, we're
property.
not going to have a dialogue here.
Okay.
Are your comments
I'm
concluded?
through.
There will be if it proves feasible, there's going to be a subsequent construction project agreement. And those who participated in the feasibility study will be the ones to gain the benefits if they participate as well in the construction of the project. Evidently, the Sonoma County Water Agency, according to Sean White of the Flood Control District, has very little, if any, interest in expanding the capacity of the dam at Coyote Valley, since their current concept is to actually reduce flows in the river. They don't really significantly benefit from increasing the storage capacity in the lake. So, if they were interested, we would have heard a lot more from them in terms of participating in either the feasibility study or the construction of a new project at Coyote Valley
They
Dam.
were talking a different tongue when I talked to them.
I think there's another puzzle piece that we haven't talked about tonight, and that is Lake Sonoma receives water from, some water from Mendocino County. We could acquire that water and trade it for water in Lake Mendocino.
But they can't utilize much of the water in that lake at all.
It appears that they're going to, in the near term, be required to install a pipe, so that instead of using the stream to get the water from the dam into their system, it'll go by a separate path in a pipe. And that will make it so they're getting water out of Lake Sonoma works.
And part of the drainage is coming from Mendocino County.
Part of the drainage comes